Before I turn the questions over to our panelists, who are all specialists and who I know have all used all of these Youth Travel Marketing 101 tips we've gotten today, I just want to say that at the end, please save your questions, if you have any, till the end of the session. The panelists will be at Youth Incoming Germany, which is at the center of the hall under the orange banner, and you can speak with them there and ask them any questions you have. Okay, we don't have a lot of time. I will introduce each panelist as I ask them their first question. And so Carlos Vogler, who is Executive Director of United Nations World Tourism Organization, is here. And I would start by asking you, as an intergovernmental organization, what you see as the role of government in furthering and supporting youth travel.
Thank you, Susan. It's of course a pleasure for us to be here with you today, and I think what we heard from Sam is very compelling, and it's a very important message for governments. The first one would be they really need to pay attention to youth travel for what it represents, not only from the perspective of the very compelling data that we have observed. I mean, 20% of world's tourism of international arrivals, but moreover also nearly 20% of receipts. It's a very important contribution to world's tourism. But actually, the contributions of youth tourism go beyond the economic aspects. There are some very significant social aspects in the way that youth people interact with the communities, in the way that they engage. Normally, young people travel with a purpose. There is, in many cases, a social component into it, and governments should be very interested in looking at this very closely. Therefore, they need to become facilitators to a certain extent. And there are a number of things that they need to do to facilitate travel at large. We are engaged very much in travel facilitation, cross-border processes, visas, and so forth. But also stimulate youth travel incentives, special fares. Also, governments need to ensure the well-being and the safety of youth travelers when they are at the destinations. But perhaps also have a clear understanding that that contribution of youth travelers to the social dimension should be contemplated as well in educational curricula. Try to understand that when you travel, you get educated, you become more tolerant, you understand other people's needs, you get to know other cultures, and all that governments, I think, need to build it up. I think it's also a way to combat seasonality. Sam told us about, yes, they spend less per day, but they stay longer. They don't have the restrictions of time that other type of travelers have. So in general terms, I think that governments definitely need to continue. Some of them are already paying enough attention. Others need to pay more attention to the importance of youth travel and value it beyond the economic impact and also looking at its social impact.
Thank you, Carlos. You said something very interesting there about the coincidence of education and travel. And I know that there are destinations here who try to combine those two different interests. And I'd like to ask Hans Hoekstra, who is with the university in The Hague, who has a particular platform for leveraging education as a youth travel parameter. Hans, could you help us with that?
I can indeed. Thank you, Susan. First question, who knows The Hague? Who knows actually where it is? Whoever was there? Less and less. Who wants to go back there? That is actually what The Hague would like. I'm working for The Hague University of Applied Sciences, and we are currently, so you mentioned engagement and partnerships. I think what The Hague is doing now is a good example of that. Imagine a city that is not the capital of the Netherlands, that is Amsterdam. It is the government center. It has some colonial, let's say, heritage that not everybody is happy about. And it's just a city, and Amsterdam is only an hour's away per train. So how can you make this city attractive for students, youth to visit, but also, to stay there? The longer they stay, the more they spend. So engaging them offering them content. One way of doing it is having, let's say, good education there. Now, that is one thing. So we have a rather large University of Applied Sciences, 25,000 plus students. There's another one, Leiden University is branding into our city. There's another bachelor education. There's an international hotel school over there. So we have up at about 30,000 students, and yet no one recognizes The Hague as a student city. That is Amsterdam, that is Delft, if you know that, etc. In comes the municipality, which have their goals. Tourism, it's there. I mean, by the way, The Hague is on the sea. It is a city on the sea. Not Ibiza, not Barcelona, but okay. And amazingly, maybe because of the city's, let's say, in the international history, a lot of international institutions have settled there. Large companies, Shell, Siemens, Schlumberger, to mention a few, but also large institutions. The International Court of Justice is there in the Peace Palace, designed by our friend Carnegie, by the way. The International Criminal Court is there, who then, let's say, bring war criminals to court if they can finally track them down. The Organization Against the Proliferation of Chemical Weapons is there. And a lot of other NGOs are, of course, now setting up there in the peripheral scenery of that. A lot of fora are being held there. For instance, the annual miniature UN meeting is being held there, where students or youth act the part of being, let's say, a UN representative for their country, and then learn to be diplomats, etc. So the municipality and the business world at large and the educational organizations now work together, which is something, that took some time to, get started, but now it's working, and it is, we call it a triple helix, but it works in exponential way. I can't give you right figures yet, but one of the goals is to not just have more students there who spend housing and they bring in the families and friends to visit, but also to keep them there, because the companies are searching for talent, not while they are students, but when they have graduated. So we want them to stay there and feel happy in that city. So, and that all starts by making it interesting to go there. And so this initiative means that three parties are now always involved. Students, as you say, they are the best advocates once they are there. And who needs more social media campaigns than students themselves? The education institutions facilitate. A nice example, the government has just, the municipality has facilitated the building of a student hotel. A Dutch new formula, some clever guys saying there are some affluent students. They don't want just a cheap room, they want a more like posh room. So they have a nice concept for that. All they needed was a good location. For that you need permission of the government. It is there now, the student hotel. We visited it, well, it was about to open last year. It is, slightly upmarket, but it works. These guys now have 20 and more openings planned for the next year. But the message here is that if you work together and get these, let's say, practices and these initiatives going, it will work somehow like a flywheel. And we're beginning to see more recognition, more demand for activities, not just visiting, but also staying there as a student and doing more after they graduate. So I think that is actually a package that we're going to be proud of once I have, let's say, real data, but getting there. So
Sounds great. Ambitious, but very doable.
it's working.
Very doable. And in fact, I know it's doable because there's another destination here on the panel who's been doing it. And I'd like to ask Nick Brooks-Sykes, who's Director of Tourism for Visit Manchester, what they've been doing in the youth travel segment for a long time now, which I think highlights some of these approaches.
I think, good afternoon, yes. A lot of what's happening in The Hague is already happening in Manchester, and I think we've got a lot to learn from each other, and some very great similarities there. Manchester as a destination is coming of age at the moment, really, after 2 decades of investment in the infrastructure and the product of the city. Like The Hague, Manchester has a large student population. We have 100,000 students in the city, and that population is growing. It's the largest student population in Europe, and our inhabitants, the citizens of Manchester, are particularly young. The average age of a Manchester resident is 29 years of age, and the residents of Manchester have grown by 20% over the last decade. So we have a very young population, a large student population, and a lot of what's happening in the city is very much driven by that youth audience and by the need to attract talent into the city and then retain them for future jobs and for working in the city in the long term. So we have a great music scene, which clearly is of appeal to young people. We have the biggest indoor arena in Europe with all the major bands coming into the city. We have a vibrant cultural offer, including a new international art gallery and the Manchester International Festival, which is a festival of new works which happens every 2 years in the city. And as a destination, we've been working hard with the universities to attract visitors into the city. So we have programs that work alongside the university to talk to students and their friends and family to get them to come into the city, to give them itineraries and ideas and programs that will encourage them to come into Manchester. So I think what we've been doing for a number of years is really engaging with a young audience. And the opportunity around social media means that we've got to be online and ever present in the marketplace to talk to people when they're looking to make decisions about where they want to go for a holiday or a visit to friends and family. And so an always-on approach to marketing where there's always something in content about Manchester is something that we work very hard to provide.
Mm-hmm. So that whenever young people engage with Manchester, they see themselves.
Absolutely.
Interesting. But lest you think it's all about universities and education, maybe Donna Keren, who's in charge of research for New York & Co., could tell us about another route to market that they're working on at present to reach this particular segment.
Okay, if I take the same approach as my colleague from Den Haag, how many of you know New York City? How many of you have been to New York City? How many of you think there's more to learn? That is how we want you to look at New York, whether you are a young traveler and a student, or someone who is looking for a place for a getaway weekend or a longer vacation. Our marketing campaigns are aimed at different segments of the community, whether it's the young traveler who is maybe 8 or 10 years old. We have a family ambassador program. We are working, and I'm going to share a little bit of a program that is aimed quite broadly, but picks up on this under 30 millennial market. We are looking to engage you in the experience of visiting New York City. So I totally agree with Samuel's 4 E's. We're certainly one of the largest international student populations, but we want you to come back after school, after you've been there for the student trip in high school or college. Now, as an FIT traveler, to come back and experience New York and begin that relationship, which generally involves repeat visitation. In our international markets, our under 30 group is actually indexing higher than their older cohorts. We may have 40% of the European market that visits the United States. We have nearly 50% of the under 34 or under 30 market. That's a huge gain for New York City because we look at them as individuals who will come back and experience all that the city has on offer. One of the things I haven't heard a lot about is shopping. New York is certainly known as a shopping destination, and we see that among the youth travel, the student travel market, in terms of where they're going, what they want to know about, how they're using our facilities and our community. Are we going to show the video?
Yeah, I think maybe there's a great example of the way New York is reaching out to youth travelers that you might want to share with us. We have a video.
We have a little short video we'd like to share with you.
The 2 words that I would use to describe New York City are anything and everything. The city can be anything you want it to be. It can represent anything you want it to represent to you. And it has everything to offer if you so choose to have everything. The 2 words that I would use to describe New York City are anything.
While they're
Allow me
resetting
to
that.
highlight some important New York vocabulary words. First word, bodega. A bodega is a corner store that's open pretty much 24 hours most of the time. You can get almost anything in a bodega. Bodegas are our friends.
Let's keep this on. Can you go back to that last slide? Do you want to tell us about how you connect to it? Yeah, good.
Okay. The young woman speaking is Taylor Swift, the largest selling pop record performer of the current moment. She has a global following across all age categories and around the world, and she is one of our newest New York residents. She is also our global tourism ambassador. We began this relationship in October of last year. And one of the things about this is that this project represents two very important parts of how we as a destination put projects and approaches together. It is integrated across multiple platforms. You see the hashtag here. These exist as video content on our website, on YouTube channels, in media. If you've driven in a cab in New York City, you might see Taylor talking to you from the screen at the back of your taxi cab. But it is not only integrating the platforms, it's the way the project was approached inside the destination. This was an integration across the company, which involved tourism development, marketing, research, and creative. And all of my colleagues are here if you want to ask them questions about it afterwards. We looked at, and were actually approached by Taylor as she became a new New York resident, with a song on her brand new album called Welcome to New York. And if we have any message for the youth market who think they know New York but think we may not be friendly, the answer is you're welcome to visit New York. And we are working that message in all of these different ways because people may think the city is too large or too unfriendly. We were delighted to have this kind of spokesperson for the city, and I'll take questions about it afterwards.
Thank you. Now, not all destinations and not all companies have Taylor Swift walking in the door to offer to help them out, I guess, right? So I'd like to turn now to a student travel agency here in Germany, okay, who exists on the cold face of marketing to the youth travel segment, because I know that he, in Germany, uses local people and the segment itself, okay, the travelers themselves, as ambassadors. So I'd like to ask Volker Brand from Rufreisen just how you do that.
So, as you all can imagine, our daily challenge is to check out what is interesting for our youth. That means we have to check out what is, to use the youth word, cool for our customers. So, in the past decade, something changed very dramatically. Actually, today, 90% of our bookings are made online. So, this leads us to the point that we have to be online, or a brand which is working online, and to catch our customers there. And in the last decade, there was the change that 10 years before, our main sector was that German kids between 16 and 25, or young people, would like to spend their holidays in Spain to go beaching and relaxing. And today, because of the global connected world, it becomes the segment of long distance or long haul trips, adventure trips, city trips to all over the world. And because of they would like to educate themselves, to expand their horizon, to be a part of this large connected world, which becomes more and more and more just closer to each other. So our daily challenge is to find out what's going on in the youth, to be a youth travel brand, and that's a daily challenge, as you can imagine.
So you stay in touch with the market and let the market lead you? You let your customers become your local ambassadors?
Of course. So one of our marketing campaigns, for example, is to stay for sure on Facebook with them, because our customers interact there daily and spend more than 3.5 hours with their mobile phone on Facebook in Germany, as in many other countries. So we have to be on Facebook too, or on YouTube, on Twitter, whatever you can imagine, every social network you know from any other country of the world. And we start a two-way conversation with them. So 10 years before, you have, for example, a catalog. You were placing your trips in it, and the parents were looking at it and see, okay, this trip is good for you. But now they go online, they check out everything they would like to see, and then they make the decision to book the trip. So it changes dramatically in this way.
Thank you, Volker. Now, we've heard from destinations, and we've heard from UNWTO and a commercial company in the space, but there is an added link when you're working with youth travel, which Sam has pointed to, and that's the role of the NGOs and the industry associations in the space, and how they work to support their members and to further youth travel in their areas. We have with us Nick Greenfield from the European Tour Operator Association. I hate acronyms, okay? And Helje Maul from Reisenetz, which is the German Youth Travel Association, and perhaps they can share with us their role and the way they support the growth of youth travel in the way that Sam suggested.
Okay, so I was thinking about this. You all know the famous phrase about the Model T Ford? It's available in any color as long as it's black. Yeah, it's a famous saying. Honestly speaking, the people wanting to work with youth travel among our members, which is about 190 operators, and the other 750 members, or of the other 750 members, are destinations, hotels, restaurants, all types of services all across Europe. I would say, do you want the good news or the bad news? The good news is what Samuel showed you. The bad news is you're going to have to work for it. And why is that? Because youth travel is not one homogenous lump, okay? Firstly, in terms of the people traveling, so we have operators who do educational tours. If they go and talk to a destination, what are they looking for at the moment? They're looking for interaction, for example. So they might say, in France, in this destination, we have a fabulous cooking school. Do you have a cooking school in your destination that can teach young Americans how to cook? You know, for example, because it's very important. So that would be a first consideration. But also, it's not only the age gap, so that it's different from backpackers through schools, educational travel, study trips. You've also got to consider the markets as well. And I actually think this is possibly where we come in a lot. We run educational workshops, and we run commercial workshops, a big one in the summer called City Fair. And the destinations there are not just there to do good old-fashioned contracting, but they want to learn what's happening with the product. What's the future? What should they be doing to attract these people? And they're going to be asking, I would say, these two questions from the segment. Firstly, what should we be doing for the university sector? What should we be doing for the educational travel sector? How about backpackers? Why are they not coming to our city? Should we even be considering them, or are we wasting our time? And then secondly, and this is where it gets complicated, they have to look at the origin markets. So we have our operators bring people from around the world to Europe. And it's a bit scary sometimes, but the opportunities are huge. I'll just give you two examples for this. Firstly, Japan. Now, you may know that the Japanese economy has looked somewhat like the Dutch landscape in recent years, it has to be said. It's having a little bit of an upturn at the moment, but Japan is a real interesting case in point. Since 1964, when they liberalized travel, one of the main places Japanese want to go is Europe, okay? It's just, we're going to do the European holiday. Do you think the current generation of youngsters coming through have that same impetus that their parents and their grandparents had? Not necessarily. So our Japanese members, and therefore the destinations, are having to work well together to make sure that when they go online, and I'm very sorry, New York, but when they go online, we're doing very well out of the Japanese, I know. But when they go online, they say, oh, you know what? We also still want to go to Paris and Rome and these other places like our generation. And the second example, now I think this is another really key point, especially for destinations, is that if that person comes and says, I've got this fantastic product in the Loire Valley, it's an actual example, where they do the cooking school, do you have a cooking school? And you think, no, maybe we don't. But could we? Yes, we could. Then it's sharing product knowledge and looking at other examples. And it would be something, particularly in Europe, that we can be quite bad at, is not actually looking at what other cities are doing and saying, hang on a minute, they're getting the youth travellers, why aren't we? So there's two little things to think about.
Thanks, Nick. Helge, do you have anything to say about that? I'm sure you do.
Just quickly, 2 or 3 sentences over the Reisenet. Reisenet is now existing for about nearly 30 years. Has 100 members, following on from Nick, over 100 members to be precise. And what the Reisenet in Germany is trying to do very hard is to creating an awareness of the potential of educational youth travel. Yeah? That there's a missing link somewhere where parents and children understand young people traveling as an educational opportunity. And we are working very hard in creating this sort of awareness, and we are actually helped by the German government with that one, because the market research came out last year, which identifies very clearly that the young people want to learn something, they want to gain something, they don't just go somewhere, but they actually want to have something from it. And in marketing terms, for our members, that of course means that we can have a two-pronged attack to an extent where we actually focus on the interests of the young people on the one side, but at the same time stress the educational awareness element for the decision makers, which are the parents frequently. So as far as my own company is concerned, we are working with that one quite effectively, that basically we have got like a two-pronged attack, because research last year identified very clearly that the decision makers are getting younger and younger. Yeah, so the decision makers are now 12, 13, 14 years old, who are sitting down together with the parents and then deciding to book a trip. Now, with the educational element, we can get the parents, and with the young people's interest, you can actually get the young people. Last example for that, we actually, because of the Facebook, Twitter, which I'm not very familiar with, what of course our customers are, we as a language school have actually changed our curriculum completely. So from a paper-based language course curriculum, we are now a computer-based curriculum. So that actually the part of the lessons is to identify websites where you can have an educational content, which the students find much more interesting than just a paper-based exercise. And that is a nice combination of the educational element and the fun bit, which I can just quote as an example.
Thank you, that's fascinating. I think we've had some excellent examples, in fact, of all the key points that Samuel pointed to in his presentation. And I hope that you are confident now, Carlos Vogler, at UNWTO, that the industry and destinations together are working to forward your agenda for youth tourism. Are you happy with us?
We are extremely happy. I think that precisely one of the things we need to foster is public-private partnerships. And all the interventions here have not only highlighted, obviously, the importance of youth travel, some of the challenges, and of course, the opportunities. And I think it's very important for governments to understand that.
Thank you.
And it's very important for the private sector to work with government in order to make them understand that.
Great. Thank you. Sam, do you want to close for us? Because I think we are just about out of time. As I said, cards can be given to Stefan. Raise your hand, Stefan. Give your card to Stefan if you want a copy of this presentation, and come to Young Incoming Germany if you want to speak to any of the panelists. Do you have any words of wisdom for us?
I will only compliment the last words, that I think that the sector has become so strong from the bottom. There is shaping energy to become more significant and recognized. And I think if this energy and appetite is now matched with a governmental initiative, then I think that we can be at the margin of good shiny times.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.